to introduce Nadyli and Anya. They are the powerhouses that are part of the team that lead Ascender. Nadyli at the helm as Executive Director, and Anya as Director of Innovation. Like I said, they recently ran their virtual bootcamp for Ascender's Incubator Program. And I'm really excited for them to talk a little bit today about, what it takes to apply to an incubator program successfully, why a company or why a company founder might find an incubator program useful. Like I said, Sharon Industry went through Ascender's Incubator Program, and I know it was hugely valuable to me as a founder and to the company's growth. But I am very curious what they have to say. And so I'll let you guys take it away from here. Thanks again.
Thank you so much, Emily, for having us here, and we miss you in Pittsburgh and having you at our space. But we are both really excited to be here. As Emily said, I'm Nadyli. I'm the Executive Director of Ascender, and I've reviewed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of applications through my career thus far. Before Ascender, I was running Uprise, which is a pitch competition focused on social innovation. And in that alone, I reviewed at least 300 applications. And then there was South by Southwest, and there was another competition in Calgary, So I've seen, local applications, national applications, even international applications, and noticed what has really moved forward, what has been successful to get a spot in accelerator, an incubator, or win a competition. So I'm mostly qualified to participate in this conversation. Anya, do you want to talk a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, definitely. Hello, everybody. Happy Thursday. My name is Annia Alema, Innovation Director at Ascender. I'm very excited also to be here. So thank you, Emily, for having us. We did just go through our bootcamp and just finalize our incubation class for 2020-2021. So we're really excited about that. Before Ascender, I was working at the city of Pittsburgh, running their PGH lab program and working with companies that were a little bit farther along in regards to their business stage. So I'm really excited to be here. Hopefully we can get down to some really good discussions, and so that we can answer your questions as well.
Yeah, and a quick thing about Ascender. Ascender is located in Pittsburgh. It is an incubator, but it's also a co-working collaborative community of entrepreneurs, solo entrepreneurs, entrepreneurs with a team, new entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, all kinds of folks of different industries as well. So feel free to check us out and reach out if you ever need help with anything. So to get started, we're gonna go, just to kind of give you a general agenda, we're going to very briefly talk about the difference between an accelerator and incubator. But most importantly is, how do you apply and how do you do it right? So many people miss the mark. And it's interesting, similar if you've ever been to a pitch, there's some people who are really good at talking, but when you check their business, they don't really have much. And then you have the reverse, where there are people who don't know how to talk and do that storytelling about their product. And they get passed on, but they actually have something really worthwhile. And we don't want that to happen to you. So I think that's Emily's also goal and why we have this going on. Really briefly, the difference between accelerator and incubator, it's different depending on who you ask. And I won't spend too much time, because as an entrepreneur, you need to know how to Google things, and there's plenty of resources to tell you the difference. But ultimately with an accelerator, it's a shorter timeline than an incubator, and you typically work with companies that are further along in the process. Oftentimes they already have an MVP. Maybe they have some initial kind of piloting or customers. But you want to essentially accelerate their growth to scale and to be out there. While an incubator is kind of like a baby incubator. You just came out, right? And you've got an inkling, there might be something disruptive. And it's really, how can we turn that into a business? Can it be turned into a business? What does that look like? So there's a lot of kind of more molding that happens from an incubation. A lot of incubators will also offer you space. It might be in a co-working space like ours. But in terms of mentorship and training, they pretty much align. It's just the topic or the depth of the topics might be different because they're in different starting points. But like I said, some incubators will accept companies a little bit later on, especially during COVID-19. A lot of incubators, including ours, are accepting people who are a little bit further along in their journey. But you just have to take it case by case basis. And part of that is doing your research on who you're applying. And I know Anya is going to talk a little bit about that. But yeah, if you literally just Google the difference between accelerator and incubator, you're going to get all the answers. So just do that.
Yeah, definitely. And then just to add a little bit more on that, I think it also becomes on the timeline. I think at an accelerator, you'll be, like it's usually about 3 months and then you're out, and then you also belong to a larger community. But with an incubator program, there will be more time commitment. So that's something that you will want to ask at the beginning, and also, you know, really be honest to yourself and see like how much time commitment do I really want to put in such a program, because both programs will definitely be tracking success and metrics. And so it's just a matter of, you know, at what stage you are, and whether an accelerator will make more sense if you are maybe a little bit more farther along. But if you need more coaching, then maybe an incubator program would be the way to go. Just wanted to add a little bit of that.
Mm-hmm. And so now, as we dive into more from the application perspective, we're going to talk about it in different sections. So we're going to talk about the sort of the dry technical component, right? There's some just basic technical logistics that you need to be aware of when you're about to apply. We're also going to talk about understanding your audience, understanding that all the applications that they'll have similarities, but a lot of them will be different in different ways. And then ultimately, how do you apply successfully? How do you stand out? How do you talk about a problem the right way? So unless anyone has any questions, we're gonna dive right into the application. Okay, all right. Take it away.
Sounds good. So first thing is first. So, you know, you did your Google research in regards to like whether an accelerator or an incubator may be the organization for you. So then, and then you're like, you know, figuring out the application periods. This really depends. You know, some accelerators or incubators will have on rolling basis in regards to the applications, or they will have specific dates. For Ascender, for example, we had a specific day where we were trying to get the funnel to our incubation program. So we just had one date per year, and then we expect all of our applications and the funnel to come through that. But other organizations have on ongoing basis, on rolling basis applications. So what you really want to consider at the beginning is when you're looking at the application, what platform is the organization using? So different organizations choose different intake platforms to receive applications. You can see some organizations will have maybe a Google document, and that's their intake form, or others will have different platforms. For example, Ascender this year used F6S, which is a market platform for startups, where you can go into this platform and find applications of different accelerators and incubators all over the world. The intake process, companies will need to create an account in order to be part of the platform, and then from then they can search what application periods are open for, you know, different cities, different organizations. In the F6S platform is sort of like pretty straightforward. There is just an intake form according to the incubation that you want to apply, and then you can save your application there. I know, so Ascender uses F6S, and we require all companies to submit their application through that platform. And we also know that Alpha Lab Gear, an accelerator here in Pittsburgh, utilizes that platform as well. And also Techstars, which is a global accelerator organization, uses that form. So whenever we were looking at which intake forms to get to our to use for our intake, for our application period, that seemed to be at standard platform that other accelerators and incubators were utilizing as well. So check it out. We highly recommend it. We can put a link also on the chat box a little bit later, so you can get familiar with that platform as well. In regards to, you know, preparing for the application, one of the things that you really have to consider at the beginning is, if you are working with a team, or if it's only you, would you want to prepare your application in the platform or outside the platform? And that just means that maybe you want to copy and paste the questions into a Word document and sort of, you know, work through application through there. Or if the platform allows you to save progress, then you can also just do that right in the platform. Sometimes we get companies that, you know, like you don't really want to find yourself in a position where maybe things got erased in a different platform just because you were not as familiar with it. So we really highly recommend for you to have, you know, backups, and also if it's easier, if you're working with a team, it will definitely be easier if you copy and paste the questions of the applications into a Word document, and then you can work on that. And especially right now that everything is remotely, then everybody can access the same application at the same time.
Can I just add one thing? I will say, I appreciate you saying you highly recommend. You have to put in a Word document, because if you're going to be applying to multiple programs, why are you making more work for yourself? Save that stuff for your own, and you just copy and paste and massage as you needed. And I also forgot to mention early on, this session is like going to therapy. The therapist tells you what you already know. You know, plan ahead of time. Don't wait till last minute. Do your research. You know this, but we're reminding you to do it. When we did the Uprise applications, we did a kind of a timeline to see when did we get the majority of applications, and 80% of the applications we received were within the 24 hours of the deadline. So I understand that you're probably still going to wait till last minute, but I'm telling you, it shows on the other end when you wait till the last minute. So just throwing that in there.
I love how real you're getting about this. Keep going.
Nadyli, I have a question. So someone who's like kind of in that space, if I emailed, like I know you guys can't do like a rough draft review, but is there an opportunity for someone who's like first starting to enter into this realm to get some feedback, to understand, like language or key things that should be in there that helps for those applications?
Yeah, that's a great question. Every place is different. For some, I remember in Uprise, because we had so many beginner folks applying, we actually set kind of office hours if you wanted to send your draft, not a week in advance, because I'm busy trying to make this happen, but several weeks in advance, I would give you some initial feedback or over the phone. Sometimes if they don't outright share that, maybe because they don't want 1,000 people reaching out to them, it's similar to when maybe you're applying for colleges or universities, you go, hey, I just have questions about what you do. Can you help me understand? And I oftentimes let the other person do a lot of the talking, because I start to learn from that program, what are they talking about? What language are they using? What's important to them? And I try to incorporate that in my application. So I would, and just don't be afraid to ask, can I send this to you in advance? But do that like several weeks in advance. If you ask them that a week before, they won't answer, or they will be like, no. If you applied somewhere and you didn't get in, you can always send them a message and say, hey, can I get some feedback? Oftentimes, because they just finished accepting applications, they have to review all those applications. They also have to accept and bring them. There might be a lag of when they can actually give you the feedback, but don't be afraid to send them, another email or remind them, hey, I just want to know how I could be better.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And I think with this also, just make sure that you are, not only getting familiar with the application platforms and what the application questions are, but also seeing the deadlines that you need to look for. So like the main one, when is the deadline for the application? Can you set a calendar invite to yourself, reminding you when do you need to check in the application and then submit it. But also it will be helpful if the organizations are offering office hours or info sessions to also put those on your calendar, just so that if you have a question, I think all of the office hours and the info session spaces are set up in a way that's where you can work through the application questions. So just making sure that you have, again, like just like Nadyli said, just a plan of action in regards to like, how do you want to get it done? And if you need to reach out, how long would that take you? So let's see. Then also as part of this, like sort of like pre-research and sort of like getting your ducks in a row, understanding what the organization values and what they're about. So, I think most likely the application will reflect what the organization, who do they want to bring into the organization, which company, and this will have to be either from a specific industry or particular business stage, and also and is there some sort of culture fit between the company and the organization as well, because they will want to like people are going to be working together either for 3 months or for longer. So it will have to be a really good, positive working environment. So understanding what the organization values so that you can also message that in your application would be extremely useful. Just as an example for Ascender, we talk about our collaborative community of members and sort of like, you know, space to pay it forward. So we were very clear on our application to ask companies what, you know, what that meant to them as well, so that we can learn a little bit more from them. All right, any questions on that? If not, then we'll go back to Nadyli.
You did remind me, Anya and Tori too, with your question. I have known of individuals who really want to apply to a program or a pitch competition, whatever it is, and they figure out who got accepted the year before them and reach out to them and say, one, how was the experience? Was it useful? Because this is also your time you're committing to it, and not all accelerators and incubators are worth your time. So that's a good way to get some insight should you even spend the time to apply. But two, what did they look out for? Would you be willing to look at my application, or would you be willing to share a little bit of how you answered this question, or I'm having trouble, something like that. It never hurts. Worst thing is that they don't reply or they say no, and you're going to hear that a lot as an entrepreneur. So I think Yvonne has a question. Yvonne, you're muted. Trying to see if I can unmute you.
There we go.
Okay.
There we go. Do you have, or do you have a place, someplace where people can look at examples of successful applications and those that were not so successful? Can you show that, or is that appropriate to share?
So I have two very brief examples of a specific question, but at least in the places that I've been a part of, when someone applies, is we give them the expectation that we don't really share this with other people.
Confidential.
We want them to be as honest and transparent as possible. But what we can do is see if there's anything already available online that we can maybe share with Emily to pass on with the rest of responses that I think were really helpful. And maybe even reach out to some of our incubator companies to see if they'd be willing, if they'd be okay if I share.
Yeah, if you get permission, because I think that's really helpful, is to look at some examples and pass. Yeah. Okay.
I will say that a few companies have voluntarily shared their successful applications to Y Combinator and a few other of the like larger accelerator programs that are out there. That's something that I've regularly referenced, not just for applications to programs like those, but also just general like best practices for pitching and other things. So a lot of it kind of ties back in with that, but.
Okay. And in regards to sort of like a little bit more details in regards to like what to look for in the applications, just remember that, you know, like depending on where you applied, some applications may ask you to come up with, to do videos, and you know, so just like leaving time for that. I know Uprise was, they ask for videos. I haven't seen other accelerators I do, but that also, you know, depending on how you want, you know, to show the video, that will take also some time to prepare along with your application and then to meet the deadline. In regards to sort of like making sure that you're also familiar with the terminologies and the list of questions that the applications will ask. I know during the office hours and info sessions that we had at Ascender, a lot of people had questions in regards to like, you know, what alpha meant, what beta meant, and sort of like just making sure that even if you know, even if it's easy to look for those definitions online, you can still sort of match, just to make sure that the organization is also on the same lines in regards to like, what is a beta stage, you know, product. You know, it means that maybe it has, you know, maybe a full website, or is on the way to a website, and maybe a couple of people have given feedback and things like that. So, you know, making sure that you are familiar with the terminology beforehand will really help you submit a strong application, and it will be helpful for the people on the other end to really understand what you're trying to message in the application. So anything else you wanted to add on that, Nadyli?
No, I mean, what I will add will come up in how to apply. Actually, yes, for the video portion, even if they don't ask it, they likely will say, you know, do you have any other links or things that you want to add? I would just include a link to a video, because showing means a lot more than telling. It's sometimes so hard to picture what exactly you do and how you do it through the application alone. Usually you just type it in. And even if it's just a graphic, so I'm just actually going to share my screen really briefly on this presentation that I usually give. So how do I make this? So obviously, if you're applying for incubator, you don't have an app to give an example of, right, where you can get someone to move through it. But if you haven't built the application, I strongly recommend doing something where it's a graphic of saying, okay, well, first, this is what happens when someone comes in. You pre-book insurance with us. Then, you know, you're going to avoid the upsell rental desk, and this just, it takes you to the steps of what is actually going on or what you're talking about. If you can create a graphic or that sort of, this is what happens at the beginning, this is how you first engage with us or the client or whoever it is, and then this is how it follows. Because what happens is that as evaluators, we are familiar with a lot of the problems that already exist, and you coming to us saying, we've got the product that fixes this problem, we go, yeah, so what? You know, what does that really mean? How are you, the how is the most important part, and that kind of goes into our kind of what I want to go into. How do you stand out in application? It's all about the problem. Sure, we want to know that the market is big enough that people are willing to pay, if that's sort of your business structure, that people are willing to pay for what you are created. Is it big enough? Is it just Pittsburgh? Is it just New York City? Is it national? Is it international? And then your solution is the second component. That, you know, you can have the problem, great, but what is your solution? And time and time again, I just hear, we're just going to be more efficient and we're just going to be more user friendly. Like, yeah, everyone says that. What does that mean? What about your product is actually going to be better than others in solving this problem in the most efficient, sustainable, cost-effective, and cost-effective and sustainable way that will actually be successful. So taking the time to explain that. So I gave an example, and I'll say this, with applications, a lot of them are generally similar, but you'll get different character counts, you'll get different terminology or what they're expecting. So explain the problem, they might give you, 500 words, they might give you 2 sentences to talk about it. And so you need to have different versions of how you address the problem. And so I'm going to show you, let's see if I can make this work. There's a company that applied, let's see if I can make it share. All right. Her company applied, and the question was obviously, what problem does your product service solve? Very simple, you're gonna say in every application. And this one says, if you can't read it, existing enterprise video solutions work well for presentations, conference calls, and meetings. So it's like, we understand that there's a market for what's already out there, my competition. When repurposed for social conversations, however, there are significant shortcomings. So the Zoom, this is a COVID-19 product that's been developed. The video feeds are presented in a rigid grid and audio streams are binary. So each participant is either muted or unmuted with nothing really in between. So you get a lot of people talking over each other, or you can't have multiple conversations at the same time. This results in crosstalk, shouting matches, and ultimately fails to enable the fluid nature of many-to-many human interactions. This was a very brief, I've seen responses to this question that are 200 to 300 words that say less than what this says, right? Where it's saying, we understand there's a place for some of our competitors and why they work, but this is where the shortcoming is, this is where the gap, and that's where we come in, that's where we fill in, because that does not exist. When we ask them about, well, okay, cool, what's your service? I guess I can't go back and forth. Describe your product service in 2 to 3 sentences. Existing enterprise, oh wait, that's not right. Describe their product service in 2 to 3 sentences. So company, I won't say who, is a video platform built to recreate the authentic and ephemeral experience of real-world social gatherings. Existing video applications focus on one-to-one or one-to-many interaction. So you see here, it's the first sentence is, this is what we do. But let me first let's level set what's happening already. The existing video applications focus more on these things. Company was created for many-to-many conversations. So this is why we exist. Now he talks about the how. Our audio adjusts louder versus quieter, and video shifts larger versus smaller as the user moves fluidly between sub-conversations within the larger group. Our vision is to recreate bars, performances, seminars, networking events online. So there's a lot going on in this, just 2 to 3 sentences, because we mentioned the first sentence, we talked about the second sentence, and even the third. This person is talking about how exactly does their product address this issue, and specifically talks about volume and even the user interface, even though I'm not seeing a picture right now. But then it gives me something to refer to. What does it feel like to be at a bar, which I miss? What does it feel like to be at a performance, which I also miss? What does it mean to be in a seminar? You know, all these things. And I'm picturing, okay, I remember what that feels like, where when you go to a presentation, maybe like this, you also have a conversation with the person that you sat next to. And hey, I'm so-and-so, I'm Nadyli, who are you? And you develop a relationship. That's hard to do on Zoom, that kind of intimate relationship. And so they're saying, we can fix this. Remember this, this is what we can, we're essentially replicating that digitally. I thought they were a great job, did a great job. And I'm gonna ask permission to make sure I can share their name, because it's an awesome platform and I think you would all benefit from using it. But it's not that hard, and it's about clarity. Now, when you are so close to that elephant as the entrepreneur, as the founder, you sometimes think sometimes think that you're communicating what your product does, and you're not, right? Because you're already making the connections in your mind that someone who's never seen your product or heard of your product understands. Also, if you're applying to an accelerator incubator, more likely than not, they've heard of a similar solution. And so they're trying to figure out, well, how are you different? And don't let them fill in the gaps for you. You want to take ownership of that narrative. So started ranting a little bit, so let me get back on track here. All right, so talking about the problem, how big is the problem? How much pain is it? And so in the application, I didn't want to go into it because it would reveal who they are, but they go into how large is the market? How many people are using Zoom? How many people are fatigued from Zoom? Or how many people talk about that they're just, who used to go to bars and performances, and now how are they spending their time? So they look that up, and they mention this is how big it is, and people are willing to pay for it. I mentioned about the solution. If possible, like I said, you can go to, I'll send it to Emily. There are some free websites that give you free icons and graphics that you can use. Canva is also really helpful. You can even customize it to be colors consistent with your brand if you already have those set. And so you can just create a graphic of how, if you don't have the app developed fully yet, how it would actually work, and take it step by step. Because a lot of times when I'm reading applications, it's just, they get already to the end. Our people save 30% in whatever, in time, or 50% in money, which is great outcome, quantitative outcome reporting. But I still want to go, yeah, but you can just say that number. How are you getting there too? So I want to know the why. Maybe I'm just a skeptical evaluator. That's really what it comes down to. but it's just, you need to be on top of your game if you really are serious about this. All right, so the how, share step by step on your solution. Talk about your competitors. There are some folks, there are a lot of, too many, that say, there's nothing like us in the market. Yeah, give me a break. That's not true. There's always some kind of alternative. Your competitor is what the person or the client or whoever the group is using to solve that problem currently. Whether it's like, in this case, maybe they're just doing Zoom as their competitor, or it's that they're doing phone calls or WhatsApp. What is the competitor truly? Never say that there's nothing like this on the market. Already points off in my book personally. And you can do it as simple as, and I sometimes, when someone says that, I literally go on Google and just Google similar attributes that you're mentioning, and I typically find something already that exists out there. And if you didn't mention it, especially if it's a popular platform or a popular service, if you didn't mention it, I think this entrepreneur lacks the skills to be resourceful, to research, and these are fundamental attributes that you need to be successful. And as we know on our end, the product is as important as who is making this happen. So I always kind of mention what you're trying to convince people is why this. So why your product? Why is your product the right one? Why now? Why is now the time that this, think about Google Glass. The now wasn't for them at that time, right? And it's why this, why now, and then why you? Why are you the right person? And we've seen products where maybe the founder wasn't the right person, and some of them were self-aware about that, and they were trying to find another CEO, and there were others who weren't. So you need to keep that in mind. Any questions? I've talked for a little while before I keep going.
So I just want to note, sorry, I don't know if someone else wanted to go, but I wanted to note in the chat, we have a new member of Ascender's Incubator Program present. Congrats, Samantha. But she's also asking, she mentioned that she's here to learn how to get the most out of the Incubator Program that she's just been accepted to. So I don't know if that's later on in what you're planning to talk about, but I did want to note that.
That's a great question. We'll make sure we'll talk about that once we've gone through the application. Okay, so we talked about the problem, solution, the how, competitors. Something basic I just noticed here is just your grammar, proofread. Again, I'm telling you things that you already know, but for some reason we're here for me to remind you. Grammarly is a free tool that you can download, and it will call you out on not only your grammar, your spelling, but also the clarity of your sentences. Are your sentences too long? They even give you a score, a 94 and 86, so you kind of go back to school in a not traumatizing way. But it's very, very useful. So download that. But just it's similar when you apply to a job. If you don't have it together in that way, are you going to put any effort when we bring you into this program? Emily, did you have something to say?
No, I like that you're getting this off your chest.
Yeah. So make sure you do that. One thing that when I was helping people, especially in Uprise when they were applying, is complete your application early enough and give it to someone who doesn't know your product or doesn't know it very well. And sometimes that's like our own mom or parent or something. If we can get them to explain our product back to us, you did a great job in explaining what you're doing, how you're doing it, and why you're doing it. So always give it to someone, and always give it to someone who's going to tell you honestly if you did a good job. Because, we have our cheerleaders, but we also need those who say, you're not doing it right, or I have no idea what you're doing, or why is this even important? So make sure you have that friend or that family member, whoever, who can do that to you, who can do that for you. Let's see. Yeah, it's important to prove that you've done research on this, and especially if you are not someone who, you always want to have either an advisor, someone on your team who's an expert in the area or in the industry that you have your product in. Sometimes we got great engineers, but maybe if it's related to mental health, they themselves aren't a certified mental health specialist. So making sure you have someone on your team who does that is important. Otherwise, we might doubt the validity, or is this product actually worthwhile? And actually, credit to Sam, I was doing a lot of research in her industry and for the Center of Empathy, and I noticed that a lot of people out there who have this product aren't actually, it's not science-based. It's a lot of public speakers who are like, well, a lot of people listen to me, so I'm going to create this product, which is one of the reasons why it stood out. Let's see. Any questions right now? I can go on with so many examples. There was one time where there was a company that when I Googled them, there was someone else who had the same name, but it was a different founder talking about a very similar product. And I don't know if there was something fishy going on there or they didn't do their research, but just make sure you're Googling your name, Googling your product, because we're going to do it on our end. Sometimes I might not do it for every single application if I have, 200 to review. But typically I'm able to kind of read like, okay, I don't know as much, or I feel like there's something out there already. Why isn't this already solved? And I'll Google it and I'll find that there's a solution. And if you didn't mention it in your competitor, I go, well, I found this in 30 seconds. Why didn't you list it as a competition and mention why you're unique? Because if you don't do that, I'm assuming that you actually aren't unique. And not that I want to live in a world of monopoly, but you need to convince the person who's reading the evaluation.
And on that too, sometimes, evaluators would choose to maybe like contact the company just to make sure, hey, just want to like clarify some things, how are you maybe different from this other solution or this product and things like that. So even being aware that may be something to expect as well. So that's why doing that research is extremely important before you submit that application.
Mm-hmm. And I will also add, we mentioned earlier that certain applications, there's a character limit. And sometimes the question is, if they give you 1,000 character limit, should you take the full 1,000 or do it shorter? I think everyone has a different school of thought, but if you're able to talk and deliver what the question is asking in 2 sentences, do it. But it better be really good 2 sentences. Otherwise, it can look like you didn't put much effort into it. So just make sure of that. But I rather read 2 or 3 sentences that are really good than having to read a bunch of words times 100 applications.
Yeah. And I mean, I think this is also like kind of tricky. You have to be a very concise and a really good writer. It's really hard to like get things down to like the 2 sentences. So, maybe sometimes don't take that risk too. If you don't think, if you haven't had the application proofread or something, and you're not completely sure that the 2 sentences really say what you want to say, utilize the space as well, I would say. But unless you are an extremely very concise, writer, if there is some room to explain a little bit more, I will utilize it. This might contradict a bit to what Nadyli is saying, but sometimes I do like a little bit more room too to explain myself.
And that's a good example where you don't know the evaluators in the same organization might be looking out for certain things. You also, while we try to do our best, they might have been burned by other, companies, or they've had certain experiences, let's say with student companies. And so there's some biases that happen unconsciously. So understand that. And there's also preferences too of types of companies they like to work with, or whether they want a longer, narrative than a shorter one. So that's just something beyond your control. So you can only just focus on what is within your control and just do your best. I have encouraged people, like I'm not the best writer myself, I'm better at editing. And so I will leverage maybe a team member or someone to help me write something. So it doesn't always have to be the CEO that completes the application. In fact, I often see many folks, if they have the team members, someone else write it or submit it for them and keep track of that, but they've worked together to make that happen. So don't feel like because you're the founder or the CEO, you have to be the one that completes it from scratch and you're the only one who needs to work on it. Make sure you delegate. And as you do these more often, you'll have the content already and it will evolve a little bit as your company itself evolves as well. So we got about 15 minutes. It was a lot of talking. I do want to address the question of how can you get the most out of an incubation program that you're in. Every incubation is made differently, but if they have resources like mentors, if they have seed funding or funding of any kind or access, they're not going to chase after you. Like they're good. They're trying to help you out. And so you want to make sure that you either, maybe that you dedicate or 30 minutes of your time once a week to see like what do I need right now? And how can this incubator help me at this time? Because they will figure it out. Even if it's not within their program structure, they're going to point you to someone. They're going to try to do some research for you, whatever it is. But ultimately, you have to figure out what you need. And that's sometimes hard because when you're a first-time entrepreneur, you don't even know what you don't know. And it can be, especially because you want to, as an entrepreneur, you want to be like confident and like, I know what I'm doing and you should invest in me or blah, blah, blah. It can be difficult to be vulnerable that I don't really know if this is going to work. And the incubator, in my opinion, is a safe space, at least ours is, where you can be that honest, because we want to work through that with you so that when you're out there in the world, you've got it down straight. I would say also, you just have to put in the time. So if we say, all right, draft your forecast, your financial forecast. Financials are the most boring, lamest part of being an entrepreneur, but it's the most essential part of being an entrepreneur, because you don't really understand your business if you don't have your finances down. And you might not want to do it, but you just have to do it, and don't take 3 weeks to do it. Just produce something, and we will something to work with, because we're not going to do the work for you. Just produce something. So I would say those are a few things, but just leverage their resources. I think about Atlantic Tech Village, where they have, you know, almost 100 mentors in their list, and they have 1,200 members, and the mentors are, for whatever reason, underutilized. So just do your part. That's it.
Yeah, even if just like attending to, you know, to educational events or something, I mean, I think people can be surprised in regards to who they might connect with, or, you know, what something that, again, like, you don't know everything, right? But, you know, if you make an effort to attend to the educational events, I'm sure you will walk away with a few things that you didn't know before. So just like being present and conscious that, you know, every event, every educational opportunity that the incubator or the accelerator is providing to you has been already carefully designed for you to help you move forward. So I think just, you know, being present on that, and really thinking that you have a safe community and space that's there for you to help you succeed, would be sort of like, you know, creating, just like having that attitude will definitely add to the experience.
And take advantage that you can get warm introductions to folks versus sending a cold email to someone, or maybe even discount to services because of the relationship the incubator has with service providers or just investors or whoever else. Emma, I think you had something.
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that one of the big things that I did, Shire Industry was accepted into Ascender, as well as at least one other, Ascender and another program. And so I was making the decision, choosing between the two. And a huge part of that process was talking to companies who had recently gone through each program, because not every program is what Nadyli and Annia are describing. Like, not every program is going to be useful. Not every program is going to create that safe space for founders. And not every program is designed for that purpose, but you might not necessarily get that from their website. You will get it from talking to other founders, and asking them specifically for information about those experiences. I think at the end of the day, I mean, you can start a successful company without going through an incubator program and without going through an accelerator program. So when you are participating in one, I think it's really important to be mindful that you, at the end of the day, most likely it's on you whether or not your company succeeds or fails, and there might be resources available that you can take advantage of, but you also, like, you need to be putting in the work too. You can't really like just expect to like get into this program and then like things start getting easier. I mean, you'll have more resources, but you need to also be taking advantage of them, and, you know, being kind of smart and trying to be smart about when it makes sense to take advantage of those as well. So
That's such a good point. And for whatever reason, I don't know why we forgot Annia to mention, is leverage that you're around other entrepreneurs too. Time and time again is proven that entrepreneurs sometimes learn most from other entrepreneurs. And so that's going to be really helpful. So just make a relationship so that it also exists beyond the program, because the program ends. So you want to make sure and not that you won't be able to come back, let's say, to a place like Ascender, and if you have help, or if you're visiting Pittsburgh and you need to sit down at a desk.
they just kicked me. No, they've been love of Ascender. They've been really wonderful.
But make sure you leverage the other entrepreneurs, even if they're not in your industry. You'll learn, or they hired a marketing person, or they hired an accounting person, and it's almost like they did the work for you. They already tried them out. Were they good or bad? They were bad. All right, I just saved myself some money. So that too. Anything else?
I have another question. Sorry, my internet's terrible. I keep going in and out. It looks like I'm like dancing on screen all the time. So my business, Self-Care Senorita, is not tech-based. It is social entrepreneurship and community building and things like that. And I have found, like, even not applying, but just like starting the application process with some of the incubators or accelerators, that everything is really tech heavy, and that's not really the concentration of this. Is there a different platform or a way to go about, or a suggestion for those of us that are not super tech based? Like, I'm not solving a tech problem while we're using technology like social media and things like that. I just feel like a lot of things, like, I'm not included.
You cut
Like,
up.
even like funding, support, sistership here. Oh, sorry. Even like mentorship, support, grants, and funding. I'm in Beaver County. I'm not in Pittsburgh, so there's not the same money. And I'm not tech related, so there's not. It feels like my company is in a gap. So I'm trying to figure out, how do I erase that gap for myself?
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, you're in a tough position, right? There is a lot of accelerators and incubators who lean towards tech solutions. But there are also a lot that are social enterprise or social innovation related. And I think especially now in COVID-19, where your location doesn't matter as much, there are a lot of accelerators and incubators who are accepting people outside of their location because of this new virtual world that we're living. So one would recommend seeing other spaces that, or other incubators and accelerators outside of Pittsburgh or Pennsylvania that focus more on sort of community related solutions. The other opportunity too, and I'm trying to remember, I remember you told me a little bit about Senorita, but can you partner with someone else? Maybe the route isn't that you don't go through an accelerator incubator to start. It's that you partner with someone else who has has experience themselves, and say, can I do this with you? Can I complement what you're doing with what I have as a pilot? So there's one, but we're kind of doing that a little bit now with someone who didn't get into our incubation program, and they're really, really early, but you're like, well, maybe we can pilot something. We'll see. So that might be an alternative as well. And maybe once you flesh that out, you might be more qualified to join an incubator, because with the community, that's so tough. And this is something that's been an issue. I'm not saying that you're a nonprofit per se, but with the nonprofit or human services world, is that how do you quantify that? Because you don't get a return, you don't know the numbers a month from now like you do in tech or in other products. It's a lifetime, right? And that makes it really difficult. And I don't have the answer to that, and I think no one really truly does. But what you can do for now is, can you partner with someone? Can you see, can I just pilot this like low lift? And that way you can get some customer feedback, or enough customer feedback, and something to show for it. And this is just, I don't fully know where you're at in your process, but that's what I can say. And to apply places outside of Pennsylvania.
Yeah, we're actually moving forward with like our subscription box services. So like sourcing locally, small.
Tori, you caught up. You're moving forward with your subscription service is the last that I heard. Yeah.
I just wanted to add.
Like, are you hear me now?
Yeah.
You're back. Now you're back.
Okay. Is there a lag now?
No.
Okay. Sorry, terrible internet going on here. So the subscription boxes are going to be.
Lost you again.
Tori, it's lag, but you know what? After this, we have each other's contact information. We can talk separately. Oh, she's gone. Yeah. So
I just wanted to add a little bit in regards to, like, if incubation or accelerator programs are not, like maybe the way to go, there are also other resources, at least here in Pittsburgh, of like trainings for businesses. I know, the Chatham Center for Entrepreneurship also offers sort of like smaller engagement, like a 1-day workshop, or like, 3 weeks and things like that. That may be also a good way to keep on learning and to keep on building as well.
Yvonne, you're out in the field. Did you have any thoughts on what we've talked about, or any suggestions?
Great job, both of you. And I think it's not unlike, I agree with Tori that I found that unless you're really more tech focused and at some level, that the incubators that we're familiar with anyway, most of them are not going to be a good match unless you can figure out a way to make your particular organization a little bit more tech savvy in that way, just to be able to have some connection with the accelerators or incubators. But there are other, like Anya said, there's other services that you can go to that give a lot of help to. Depends on the whole thing. And here's the other thing. You're saying exactly the same things that really once when they get past this stage, if they're going to want some seed money or early stage money, it's really the same categories we're going to be looking at. The talent of the CEO, what problem are you solving, how large is the market? Really, the only difference would be the exit strategy.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have an exit strategy, you might as well not come and talk to us, okay? Sadly. But that's what it's about when you start seeking dollars from angels and or other funds. But being prepared to answer all of these same questions with some good, strong information and showing, especially the competitors and so on and so forth, is really, this is training for you all the way through the process, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that there's a way to do this too. I appreciated Emily saying that you don't really need to go through an accelerator incubator to build a business, because if you surround yourself.
Most people don't. Most people don't.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And if you surround it, if you do, it's like going to school, right? Or if you want to continue your education, you can also do a lot of learning on your own. There's so many resources out there, like Shine Registry in this program. To learn. And then more importantly, I think what has helped me generally in my career is having the right mentors and people I can talk to bounce ideas off of. How should I do this? What's the strategic thinking for this? Or how do I manage a board, et cetera, et cetera. So it is possible to do it without the accelerator.
Absolutely.
Very possible. We're just here to add on, or for people who sometimes need that structure, someone to hold you accountable. But if you can make that happen without it, do it.
I think one of the big differences for the entrepreneur to decide, is this a scalable business or is this a lifestyle business? Mm-hmm. And both are perfectly fine, either way that you go. But you have to understand that yourself. Is it really, are you building a business to create a company and run a company? Or are you building something to build it, scale it, exit? And those are very different approaches.
Yeah, because in the very beginning, the way you formalize that business is going to be very different based on the answer to that question. So you're absolutely right. Mm-hmm. All right. So if there aren't any other questions, feel free to reach out to Anya, myself, and I'm sure Yvonne too. All right. Don't respond to it.
Don't the funds are.
She's busy enough. She's busy enough. Reach out to either Anya or myself. Emily can share the information. We're happy to answer questions.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question.
Thank you for having us, by the way.
Nice job, ladies.
Thank you.
Before folks go, I am just going to do a quick screen share to invite folks to check out. There were a lot of really good, you can see that. There were a lot of really good points made today about ways, and I think a lot of what I noticed is a lot of what was talked about would really be also applicable to grant applications, which may be a bit more broad than some accelerator programs or incubator programs that you might be looking at. But I also just want to double down on inviting folks to check out a recent blog that we put up highlighting female founders who are currently a part of the Ascender community who also have profiles up on Shine Registry. We are keeping our virtual events free for folks, but we do ask that folks help support female founders who are on Shine Registry and help support Shine Registry by checking out like folks that we want to highlight for our business showers. So if you haven't gone to a Shine Registry profile before, this is Kathleen of Minding the Gap, who was a part of Ascender's not most recent incubation program, but the one that is just closed out. When you go to her profile, you'll get a little bit of information about what she does, and you'll also get a list of ways that she's seeking support. Like I mentioned before, founders on Shine Registry have the opportunity to ask for monetary as well as non-monetary asks. All of Kathleen's asks are non-monetary, and so they're all things that you can do really quickly, really easily. I'm just gonna agree to give her some support on social media over here. And then I'm prompted to confirm that I'm doing this. You have my information here. And when I hit fulfill, she gets a notification. Okay, well, I'll fix that later. But but she'll be getting a notification that I've agreed to fulfill a few things for her and support her on her entrepreneurial journey. We are in the process of revamping the website and are expecting to be able to relaunch at the end of the summer, knock on wood. If anyone's ever been a part of that process before, you know how crazy it gets. But we're going to be rolling out a bunch of new features. In the meantime, we hope that you join us for other virtual events that we have coming up.